Coming soon on video cassette.
I'm going in.
John Carpenter's Escape from New York, the high adventure of the future. One man must go in where no man has ever gotten out. And if he comes back alone, his nightmare has just begun. John Carpenter's Escape from New York, the greatest escape of them all, is about to blow the future apart.
And now for our feature presentation.
Welcome to Tape and Laser, where we enter through glass panel doors into video store hell and pay our respects to current and bygone rental gems for the sake of surrogate nostalgia, longing to live in that golden age of one-night stand celluloid odysseys that probably existed only in our minds. To start this series off in perfect beat style, we delve into a quintessential slice of 80s Warsploitation from one of Italy's most prolific directors. Lewis Collins, Lee Van Cleef, Ernest Borgnine and Klaus Kinski starring Antonio Margeheriti.
Come si chiama lei? Antonio Margeheriti.
Ancora?
Margeheriti.
Un'altra volta, ma adesso vorrei proprio sentire la musica delle parole.
Margeheriti. Margheriti.
Cult star-studded macaroni action classic, Codename Wild Geese.
Bravo, bravo.
Following an opening sequence of a combat exercise gone horribly wrong, veteran SVS Captain Wesley is called on by DEA agent Fletcher to infiltrate an opium manufacturing operation located deep within the Golden Triangle area in South Asia. Wesley then assembles a crack team of mercenaries including helicopter pilot Travers and sets off into the jungle, acquiring assistance from local rebels along the way. Their plan is to first steal a helicopter from one of the local army units guarding opium dumps, and then fly into the two main plants with full intent of annihilating the whole operation. No exceptions. However, things do not go to plan, and the team is left fighting for their lives against the local sadistic warlord, whilst trying desperately to carry out their mission. But soon more problems arrive when Fletcher's contacts, consisting of businessman Charlton, untoward what they seem, and betrayal ensues. To all movie connoisseurs, if that layout sounded vaguely familiar, then don't worry, you're not getting senile, and these films aren't blended in together due to a possible case of dementia. The plot of Codename Wild Geese, surprise surprise, shares many beats out of the 1978 British action classic, and oh how too few of those exist, The Wild Geese. Just swap the perfect struggle with an atypical 80s war and drugs message, and you would have more of the same film. Another similarity is the relatively all-star cast, which of course is an attempt to emulate 78's Wild Geese ensemble of Burt and Harrison Moore, and hopefully achieve the same success through the same winning formula of camaraderie, explosions, and an overwhelming emphasis on duty and devotion, something the Thatcherite era most likely ate up with considerable relish. However, this is probably giving Codename Wild Geese too much credit, as even though the storytelling of 78's Wild Geese was slightly rough around the edges, when compared with Codename, you tend to appreciate the more craft that went into the execution of the 78 version. Because there is no way around this, Codename Wild Geese is a cash-in. It has all the bearings of a genre title whose existence owes solely to the financial success of a previous entry. Its direction is straightforward and economical, the acting, while not terrible, is also nothing engaging, and the action is predictable, however still efficient in its purpose.
That's a bazooka.
Luckily though, all of these things work in Codename's favour, as the final result is bare bones but quality Warsploitation, with many explosions, desperate situations, and questionable ethnic and female representations, as you can shake it out for at. 78's Wild Geese's uncomfortably unsympathetic treatment of African tyranny as a subject matter was replaced with a more streamlined and acceptable dilemma, which was third world drug manufacturing, and therefore Codename can take more liberties with how it presents its surroundings, and focuses more on heavily stylized action in true Italian exploitation fashion, cue-like gore, superficial logic, and many Leone-style close-ups, which are still quite striking even their diluted appearances here. In the end, it was not the action sequences themselves or the satisfyingly unambitious narrative that made me enjoy Codename Wild Geese, but rather the whole manner in which it went about its running time. Codename is unapologetically exploitive, focusing mainly on action and almost feels like it's being intentionally thin on narrative and characterization. There are traces of character arcs here and there, most notably the female character's battle with her imposed upon opium addiction, but nothing is complex enough that it isn't solved by the end of the credits, and you most likely won't remember anything that occurred within these 100 minutes, unless you're reviewing the film like I am. However, it should be noted that the storytelling is basic rather than underwritten, and does serve its purpose well by stringing together each action sequence into a coherent whole. I can recall many gaps in logic in the action sequences, most notably being the car chase in the tunnel, where for a few seconds gravity becomes Colin's bitch and he rides along the tunnel wall with precision Charlie Crooker would be envious of, but I did not recall any obvious plot holes that would have affected the pace of the film.
If the pain is too much, you know what this is, don't you?
You trust me?
We priests have a lot of faith.
I could give it to myself instead of to him.
Yes, you could. It's up to you to decide whether or not you'll try to get your act together.
I'm not in the soul-saving business. Least of all my own.
Well, who said it was lost?
The narrative is incredibly simple and occasionally patronising, especially if you've seen the original Wild Geese, which pulls off near enough the same narrative with comparable grace. But it's executed confidently enough that it comes off as enjoyable kitsch instead of tiresome cliché. And the fittingly jazzy score by Joe and Smith's band Eloy has aged in just the right way, coming off as dated yet enigmatic at the same time, and sets the tone perfectly for this film. I purchased the VHS of Codename Wild Geese at a charity shop due to me hearing that Arrow Video was re-releasing the film and its two sequels on DVD, and even though I had my doubts, I was still intrigued since Arrow's taste is usually on par excellence, and besides the video was 50p, and even then it was a buy one get one free offer. Seeing it now, I would have been glad to just purchase it on its own, and even would have considered paying more, but anything over £3, I guess I would have been a bit harsher in my analysis. But as it stands, Codename is most likely a film I'll see again. It's not a film to be wowed at, but it packs plenty of B-movie charm, and does enough right that it's an unironically enjoyable experience of its own accord. Not one for the casual action affectionado, but for those disappointed by the Expendables and want something more earnest in tone, then I wholeheartedly recommend this pristine 80s time capsule of action kitsch. You can truly do far worse than this.